I'm going to talk you through a Part D answer from Paper 1, which is the Ethics paper, and this is from the Relationships section. And the Part D statement that we are going to analyse and evaluate, that means look closely at and look for strengths and weaknesses in different views about that statement. The statement is, the primary purpose of sex is to procreate. And this is a Part D, so it's worth 15 marks. Your Part Ds make up half of your exam marks, and so it's really important that you get them right. And so we would say that our ABCD structure is particularly important for these questions. Firstly, because they are making up half of your overall marks, but also because the answers are quite long, they're often 2 sides of A4, it can be quite easy to lose your way. And so by having our ABCD structure, that just keeps you on track. And lots of our students will write either in the margin or at the top of the page A, B, B, C, D, A, B, B, C, D and D, and then cross it off as they do it. And that's just a way of making sure you include everything that the examiner is looking for. A key to doing well in an exam is to think like an examiner, to know what they're looking for and to give it to them. And the ABCD structure helps you do that. So this is our exam mat that all our students have in their exercise books, and also we tweet every day when we tweet an exam question. And we're going to focus on this section over here, which is how to answer a Part D question. So a reminder that A stands for answer, B back it up, C challenge, and D decide. And in a Part D, you're going to use all of those elements. It's really important that your Part Ds don't look like 2 Part Cs put together. And if you forget the challenge and decide, that's what will happen. And if you have no evaluation, it's going to be very difficult for you to score above half marks. And so it's really important that you do use this structure. And so you're going to start by giving a response or an answer to the statement, identifying who would give that view. So starting quite broad. And then you're going to give some evidence, as you do in a Part C really, give 2 bits of evidence to back that view up. And that evidence is going to probably be sources of wisdom. So it could be a Bible passage, a Hindu text, it could be the Pope, it could be the Catechism. But you can also do what we call moral reasoning, where you talk about what logically makes sense, what's practical to do. Then you're going to go in and challenge that view, give a counter argument, and then you're going to make your decision. And the decision you're making is which response to the original statement is more convincing and why. Was it the original view or is it your counter argument? And then you're going to do exactly the same again. So have a second paragraph, give an answer, back it up twice, challenge it, and then decide what's the most convincing, the original view or the counter argument. I think it's really important that you don't just have your evaluation in your big D at the end or your conclusion, for 2 reasons. Firstly, the more evaluation you have in your answer, the better, because that's the purpose of this question. But secondly, if you run out of time, if you've saved all your evaluation until the end, you might never get there. So have some evaluation at the end of each paragraph so that you do get those credit for having evaluation, even if you don't finish the question. Eduqas really like to see you building your evidence, so they love linking terms. So just as you may have done in your Part C, try and use phrases like in addition, moreover, furthermore, consequently, in contrast, however, in the same manner. But then your part Ds you're also going to use are evaluation sentence starters. So things like the key issue here is, that's a really good one because it shows that you're analysing, you're looking up close. On the other hand, it shows you're giving different views. This is not convincing because, but you must have a reason. Don't just say this isn't convincing. A counter argument to this would be, I mean, that's going to be your C, isn't it? A key strength or weakness is, alternatively, and this argument is effective, ineffective, because. So now let's have a look at the answer I've put together for you. So let's have a look at my first paragraph, my first ABBCD paragraph in response to this statement. So you will notice that I have highlighted my A, my two B's, my C, my challenge, and then my decision. And have a look, my decision is making up the bulk of that paragraph. And because this is an evaluation question, that is how it should be. So I've responded to the statement saying that Christians who agree with this statement might believe that one of the main roles of humans is to have children, and that God has created the gift of sex to enable this to happen. So directly responding to the statement there. It might have been better to have maybe said the primary role of humans is to have children. That would have been a better match with the statement. And then I used the phrase in support to show that I'm giving evidence, and my source of wisdom is from Genesis. It's go forth and multiply. So I say in support of the view that the primary purpose of sex, look how I've used the phrase there, is to procreate, is that the first instruction given to Adam and Eve is to go forth and procreate. And then I've got my linking statement in addition. And now I'm going to talk about natural law. So I'm showcasing some really good subject knowledge that I know is going to impress the examiner. And I'm going to say that natural law, one of the primary precepts, is to reproduce. And therefore, the primary purpose of sex is to procreate. And look how I've matched the statement here. The examiner is convinced here that I am answering the question. I'm going to go up into the top band. I'm then going to challenge that view because I'm creating a discussion. And my source of wisdom in my challenge, and the best challenges are backed up with evidence, is the Catechism, which teaches that yes, sex is about having children, but it's also about creating intimacy, showing love between a married couple, and therefore that is also important. And then, just in case the examiner is not sure, I'm starting my D bit with when evaluating these views. I'm telling the examiner that I am meeting the skills criteria for this question. And so I'm saying, well, the first thing is that I have to acknowledge sex results in children. So that has to be a primary purpose. So I'm acknowledging a strength in that statement. However, I'm also now going to link beliefs about sex with stewardship. And if you can reflect on how Christian beliefs fit together or don't fit together, that's quite a sophisticated answer. And so I'm going to say that if Christians are going to be good stewards, they're going to want to limit the size of their family. And therefore, the primary purpose of sex is going to move away from having children or procreating to creating intimacy. And therefore, at the end of my decision bit, I return to the statement and I say, therefore, I would agree that sex is a primary purpose. Sorry, that should have read that procreation is a primary purpose of sex, but not for those who aren't trying to have children. And so I've made sure that my statement matches here. And I've just demonstrated the importance of giving yourself 30 seconds to read through your answer to make sure that it makes sense, because I'd made a little typo there where I was typing quickly. You're also going to be writing quickly, and so little errors may creep in. But I've made sure that my paragraph has ended by returning to the statement. I'm then going to go to my second paragraph, and at Lytchett our second religion is Hinduism, and so that's what I'm going to use. I could use another different religious view, or I could use a non-religious view, but I want to showcase really good subject knowledge, and so I'm going to use Hinduism. And so my initial answer is Hindus would agree that a primary purpose of sex is to have children, and that's why sex is a key duty or dharma of the grihasta stage of life of ashrama. But I'm saying it's not the only purpose of sex. Okay, so nice linking with the question, which is all about the purpose of sex. I've also packed into those 3 lines lots of key terms. So dharma, grihasta, ashrama. They're looking for key terms in your Part Ds as well. Then I'm going to back it up by saying that being a parent is important in Hinduism. It is seen as a key duty, and my evidence for that is that the goddesses are often praised in particular for being mothers. I'm running out of time a little bit now, so I can't expand on that in the way that I might want to, but I want to make sure I get to my evaluation. And then my next back it up, however, because I want to support the idea that yes, sex is about children, but it's also about intimacy, is that one of the aims of life in Hinduism is pleasure or kama, and one way of doing that is through sex. And so sex, therefore, is just as much about pleasure as it is about procreation. And then I'm going to give a counter argument, and again I'm going to suggest that that view perhaps doesn't match another Hindu belief. And Hindus, of course, practice detachment. That might have been a key word I could have put in there. And I'm going to say that if you are very focused on physical pleasure, that could become a distraction. You could become too attached to that, and that could get in the way of you achieving moksha. And therefore, for some Hindus, sex might be about procreation rather than pleasure. And then I'm going to evaluate that. This evaluation isn't quite as long because I'm running out of time a little bit, and I want to get in a final conclusion. And so I'm saying, when evaluating, letting the examiner knowing what I'm doing, I'm going to say actually Hindus tend to be quite relaxed about contraception, which suggests that they do think that sex is about much more than procreation, because obviously contraception gets in the way of that. And then I've got my big decision at the end. And look at this nice evaluation phrase I've got here. I think the key issue is. So I'm going to say, when reflecting on Christian and Hindu views on the main purpose of sex, I think the key issue is the situation of the couple. So if they are hoping to start a family, the primary, but not the only purpose of sex, might be to procreate. That beautifully matches our statement here. So the examiner knows that I've got lots of evaluation and I'm focused on the question. But at other times, the primary purpose of sex, again, matching the statement here, for most couples is to promote intimacy and pleasure. So to remind you, for each of my 2 paragraphs, I've got an answer, I've backed my answer up with evidence, I've got a counter argument, and then I'm making a decision about which view is most convincing. I've then done that again. When making a decision about which view is convincing, I've considered other religious beliefs that might be relevant. And then I've got a conclusion, and to show analysis, I've said what the key issue is that I need to consider when reaching my conclusion. And also, at the start or end of each paragraph, I'm repeating the phrasing from the opening sentence, or from the question rather. So primary purpose of sex appears, or procreation appears, at the start or end of each of my paragraphs. And that produces a grade 9 part D answer.